Right, beautiful friends, I hope that you're all okay and everything's going well. And I think we're in the fourth week now, and I don't really know why I'm talking with an accent from Dublin because I haven't even visited that. Anyway, hello, hope you're all good. And today we're looking at designing computer games, what makes a good game. Now, this is me actually taking that piece of paperwork, that sort of chapter by Mark Overmars, and I'm just more or less decomposing that for you so you don't actually have to do any reading at all. Aren't I benevolent? Okay, so I think that's Breath of the Wild or something, who knows. Perhaps a game that I'm absolutely shockingly awful at. So this is really to sort of inspire you in terms of your implementation in your coursework, whether that coursework is going to be option A or option B and you're in fact implementing something. It should inspire you to come up with a sort of feasible, workable idea, hopefully. And everything will be well. So we'll look at some good games. What is a game? We've looked at that sort of slightly before. And he analyses in this little piece of paper what he's got. Is it a movie, a toy, a puzzle? What do you actually think constitutes a good game? I can tell you some of the components, some of the sort of motivational theories behind it. What are your favourite games? There's a lot of sort of give and take in this lecture, a lot of sort of ice-breaking exercises and audience participation. But we don't have that anymore. So I'll just wing it as best I can. I'll try to be the audience and myself too. So it's supposed to be a wee bit more interactive than this. I apologise. So what are your favourite games? What makes a good game in terms of reaching goals, rules, constraints, decisions, balance? That balance can be between players, it can be between the player and the game. Game features, rewards and flow, objects and resources, story, very, very interested in stories in game. And the game world, we'll have a look at game worlds as well. Main characters, protagonists, antagonists, NPCs, sound, music, leitmotifs, that sort of thing. Writing a description of your game is very, very important. And whether that's going to be option A or option B. Now, option A, if you're going for the sort of, and I'll put these on, I know I promised to do it last week, but I really promised to do it this week. I'll put this on Aula. And if you're doing option A, it's the big elongated games design document, which is 90%, and then a 10% sort of showreel pitch of your idea. And then the other one is 40%, then a game implementation, and then a showreel as well. And whether you're sort of doing that, writing a description of what your game is going to be is very, very important. It's nice to be able to sum these things up concisely, because you're going to be sort of having to do that your entire life, regardless of what happens. So, I mean, if I'm writing a paper for a journal or a conference, I always have to tailor that particular paper, that piece of work, to their particular format, or they won't accept it. And I've had students come to me in the past and say, Thomas, I've got this fabulous idea for a game, but it's 10,000 words and I don't know how to cut it down. Really? You don't know how to cut 10,000 words down and make it concise? Well, you'll have to do it, otherwise no one's going to read your 10,000 words. Alrighty. So, writing a description, very important. That's your sort of unique selling point. And a small paragraph describing anything is often considered to be quite beneficial. Now, obviously, if you're doing this for the larger games design document, it would be nice to have a description that is twice as long as the smaller one. So let's just say that the large games design document is going to be 2,000 words, yes, and more effort, lots of work, lots of nice diagrams, lots of illustrations, lots of drawings for you computer animation people. And the smaller one will be half the size, yes? So if you've got 1,000 words in something, make sure that you use the 1,000 words. But writing a description in either event is good, okay? What kinds of games can you actually implement for your coursework as well, or think about implementing? Now, I don't want people to entirely go into the realm of fantasy here. It would be quite nice that if you were in fact going to write a 90% games design document, that this was in fact going to be a slightly feasible idea that you could theoretically accomplish on your own. and not just simply say, I'm going to come up with this triple A game. It could be absolute fantastic virtual reality. And go into the realm of fantasy that way, and realize that the AAA games require a team of about 150 people on them. So do sort of think that is this a feasible idea? Will I be able to pull this off? So good games of 2020. 2020 has been a hell of a year, but there have been some good games. So one of the best ones, I can't remember exactly where I've got this. I think it was this sort of Nintendo newsletter, and they're celebrating diversity. This month, this year, who knows? So, The Last of Us Part 2, brilliant game. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So let's see. There's a picture of The Last of Us. Animal Crossing. Oh, there's Mortal Kombat 11. Red Dead Redemption 2. Ring Fit Adventure. I absolutely hate sports games of all kinds, really. So I'm not really into a basketball game, but hey. Animal Crossing, in this game seems to be where you're populating an island with anthropomorphic animals, and that's lovely. Anthropomorphization, I believe, is the 4th largest word in the dictionary. So I think the first one is a fake one, which is pneumono-ultramicroscopic silico-volcaniconiosis, which is a large one. Then the second one is flossy-nossy-nihilipilification. And then I think the third one is anti-disestablishmentarianism. And then it's anthropomorphization. So do look them up and clue yourself up in these things. Good. So, anthropomorphic animals. Good. And then, of course, we've got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And apparently, this is actually winning. This is it's done it right or something, I was reading on the internet, because they've done away with the unlockables. Everything is just completely and utterly available. Giving them all the choices and seeing what happens. And that's good. So, and Minecraft Dungeons as well. So those are some of the good games of 2020. So some good games of 2019. Oh God, I would normally sort of make this an interactive sort of thing where I would give you clues. Here they are. Here's from the Nintendo Switch, a remake of side-scrolling Wii U favorite Mario and Luigi U, couple of new characters. And of course, it's this game here, Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe on the Switch, which I'm surprised I don't actually have, but we'll probably get at some stage. Here's more. It's in the Xbox One and the PS4. Over a decade in making, good graphics, colossal crossover project, and of course that is Kingdom Hearts. So these are some of the good games from 2019, and we would have a lovely sort of guessing session in the lecture, but sadly we can't have that this year. But just pretend. Yes. Xbox One, PS4, Nintendo Switch. It's bloody, it's disgusting. Best fighting game franchise ever. Wait a minute. Is bloody Mortal Kombat 11 in the Switch? Oh, I didn't know. I need to buy that immediately. Maybe I made a mistake. We shall see. Wacky indie title, Nintendo Switch, music-based dungeon crawler that really won Nintendo. Really won Nintendo what? Oh yes, won Nintendo acknowledgement of wealth and diversity and creativity right now. Okay, good stuff. So we have Cadence of Hyrule, good. Gears 5, that's another good one. There should have been some form of hint there before that materialised, but obviously not. We're winging it, we're going through it. I'm not starting lectures from the beginning now, regardless of how many mistakes I make. Otherwise, I'm just going to be standing here pre-recording everything forever. So Gears 5, good. Good games of 2018. This is a PS4 game, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch and PC, fast-paced platformer. One life to make it as far as possible. Different weapons. Dead Cells. Oh yeah. PS4, Xbox One, PC, Mac, iOS, Android. Bald-faced rip-off of another Battle Royale game. And the gameplay is a mixture of looting, shooting and building. And there we have it. Fortnite. Yeah. To buy that too, I promised someone. To buy so many things. Okay. PS4, Xbox One, PC, Mac. Wake up after crash landing in an oceanic alien world. Lost in underwater tunnel system, undersea tunnel systems. Pressing that after 10 pints. Underwater survival game. So, obviously, that's Subnautica. PS4, jumping off the Empire State Building, swinging over Fifth Avenue, kinetic joy. Even the quips are fun, apparently. Spider-Man! Yes, it's Spider-Man 4. Can't remember. But it's a good one.
PS4, Xbox One, ambitious as hell, prequel to Rockstar's 2011 masterpiece, and you play as Arthur Morgan. Red Dead Redemption 2. Excellent, good stuff. Some good games in 2015. This is an RPG focused on Japanese teenagers. Explore the confines of high school life during the day, make friends, perform tasks, and when night comes, you battle those friends in a turn-based strategy game. And it's a Final Fantasy type. Oh my god, I've put so many clues in here, it's beyond belief. Narrative-driven, quirky game as well. And it's in the PS3 and the PS4. And it's, of course, that one. Persona 5. Even though it doesn't say it on it. Thank god I recognise that. Okay. Fighting game. Has a silly story mode to cater for a larger audience. Part of a very long-running fighting series. Offers the most sophisticated gameplay of any of its predecessors. Good. Xbox One, PS4, and it's of course Tekken 7. Yeah, good stuff. Right, in the style of BioShock, mixes first-person gameplay, horror elements, and environmental storytelling, suspense-filled as the aliens can take the form of everyday objects in your environment. Ooh, stealthy. A new innovative way to make the environment suspenseful. Xbox One, PS4, PC, see if you can get it before I press the button, and it's, what is it? It's Prey, yeah. Fast-moving third-person action game. After a decade, the game finally launched. You're a samurai struggling to defeat an endless stream of monsters. Takes place in a fictionalized period in Japanese history. Rewards mastery and punishes incompetence. Excellent, I love it. Very, very Japanese. What's that sort of Simpsons episode? Most game shows reward knowledge, we punish ignorance. Ignorant what? Okay. PS4 only, and it's Neo? N-I-O-H. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. Okay. It's a strange game, this one. A few possible dozen endings. Features robot protagonists. Rare open world game developed by Japanese game makers. A mix of RPG elements and action gameplay. PS4 and PC, and it's of course Nier Automata. Nier Automata. Ooh. Right, okay. Essentially Mortal Kombat with DC comic heroes and villains. Everyone always gets this. Produced by NetherRealm Studios. Campaign mode, a robust online multiplayer mode. Xbox One, PS4, PC, and it's of course Injustice 2. There's Superman standing there. Starting to look like him actually. It's because I've been working out so much during lockdown, to be perfectly honest. First person horror, survival game. Got a wee while to go before I'm Henry Cavill right now. Allows you to experience the horror with a PSVR headset. Seventh in a highly successful series, takes the series back to its roots, exploring a massive, terrifying house with very little to protect yourself. Xbox One, PS4, virtual reality, PC, and of course it's Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Yay! Oh, that's awesome, that game. Whew. Right, racing battle mode game. Takes a massive wealth of tracks, characters, carts, all from the Wii U's underloved previous version. Ooh. Everyone loves this game in one way or another, and it's the Nintendo Switch. And of course it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Yay! Oh, for God's sake, there's more. Pits you against 100 people on a deserted island. Literally parachute to the island alongside 100 people. The goal is to be the last one alive. PC, Xbox One is supposed to be later that year, but I'd imagine it's happened now. And that is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Ooh, that looks fabulous. Right, this is the game that I'm really, really awful at. You are in the inhospitable environment that is Hyrule. Monsters are bloody everywhere. You can die from the environment, i.e. being too cold or drowning, which I found out to my peril. And as you can see, I have a number of consoles here, but I've told you this story before, where I kind of, because I'm old school, I went up, I got the axe, and I went, hi-ya! And I fired the axe into this expanse of water and thought, damn, I need that. And I went in, started swimming, trying to get the axe, retrieve the axe. Don't know why, because quite frankly, axes should have been everywhere. But then I started to drown, and instead of sort of floating back to the surface, I actually did die. And you're going, oh, damn it. Never mind. Full of puzzles that are specifically in place to make you feel smart. Ooh, didn't make me feel smart. Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Wii U, I'll get into it eventually. apparently a lot of people don't really like this game because of the difference in style. At least someone was telling me, a millennial was telling me, I am far older than that. There's millennials and then there's Generation Z people, or Z, and unfortunately they can't have conversations on the phone like we can, old school, anything like that. They're very, very quiet and do everything sort of textually. Yes, but I predate all of that myself. But apparently, it's Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which is absolutely. Where is it? Where is it? I've got the switch here. Ooh, all the games. Here it is. I've got that too. It cost me 50 bloody quid. £50 to go into a gaming environment, throw an axe into into water and drown. Oh. Okay, next. Some say that while playing games, they often experience a small handful of emotions. The list has dramatically expanded. Smart gameplay systems underlie the game's narrative, apparently. Curiosity about the deep lore of the game's world, people and religions. Cared about the main player, believed her motivations, wanted her to succeed. This is what some people were saying about it, and it's the PS4. And it is, of course, Horizon Zero Dawn, and I hope these are coming to an end soon. Okay, so there we have some good games in 2018 again. Dead Cells, Captain Toad Treasure, I believe. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, is that right? Sea of Thieves, yep. Mario Tennis, Aces, Assassin's Creed, Spider-Man. Where's Spider-Man? And of course, FIFA 2019, apparently released in 2018. Ooh, God. So, in terms of games now, I mean, we have things like VR accessories. So this is a little chap trying some of the VR accessories at the open day. We'll kind of notice that there's a bit of a wire here. You of course have the Vive and the Quest, and now they're trying to sort of make these things without wires, and they've just released them, I believe, this year in April. And hopefully that will mean that there'll be increased interactivity, and this is to increase the immersion of the gameplay and make you feel that you're actually part of it. And while virtual reality is fantastic, from a sort of research point of view, not entirely certain that it's suitable for everyone. My research sort of remit is serious games, and I look at the use of virtual reality to teach programming at the moment. And I have sort of noticed that a lot of people don't like virtual reality because it does make them slightly nauseated. And also, it's very, very, how to put this without being politically incorrect, it excites people, shall we say. People that perhaps suffer from autism don't really particularly blend with it well. So just to say that. So there he is. He's doing quite a good job there. So he's got the HTC Vive. And then of course you have things like the Oculus Go, Oculus Quest, Oculus Rift as well, and then there's the Vive there. Okay. So all these accessories nowadays, gaming technology, games development technology is advancing at a sort of exponential rate, and it's nice to sort of see. So in that slight paper that I asked you to sort of read for this week, what is a game? Is it a movie? So a movie obviously is not a game due to the fact that interactivity is in fact lacking. And of course the end state is predetermined, and regardless of how many times you watch a movie and say, oh God, I wish you hadn't done that, you will never be able to change the end state. And to give you an example, I am quite a big X-Men fan. That's my phone. Quite a big X-Men fan, and sort of what happened with X-Men 3, The Last Stand, in 2006 is that they sort of attacked Alcatraz, and Magneto was sort of, big Magneto fan, and he was sort of walking into the mist. I'm like, God, don't do that, that's a trap. And you're shouting at the screen going, no! And they still do it anyway, because it's predetermined, and it's absolutely fine. And you've just got to sit there and watch it passively while everything happens before your eyes, and you don't necessarily want it. So you can watch a movie a number of times. You can invariably become sort of immersed in the movie and think, oh, that was a shame, and all that sort of thing. But you cannot alter the outcome. And at times you find yourself really sort of using your imagination and experimenting with different endings and thinking, oh, how great would that actually be if I could alter the movie. I'd imagine that in some stage in the future, probably long after we're all dead, there will be sort of interactive movies, or at least there should be, where the person can in fact have the ending or make the choices that they actually want in the movie. I'm quite surprised that they're not in production already. I will give you a sort of example. There's a new Halloween, well, it's not a new Halloween movie, but there's a Halloween movie out. It was out in 2018. And it's very, very bloody, very gory, very horrible. And what I wanted to see, well, there's a part going when he's inside a house and you see a baby crying in a crib, and it's just a bit too evil to stab the baby yet. And some people would kind of want to see that in the next realm of horror. I'm not saying myself, but in the next sort of realm of horror, you think if Michael Myers stabbed the baby, then that would take horror into a new realm, but that's apparently too cruel. So I think that possibly what will happen is you'll have various decision stages, perhaps during movies, that you can make some form of informed choice, depending on how psychotic the person actually is, or how benevolent they are, and see what sort of happens. So, on that note, it's a game, a movie? No. But if we have a look at these people, this is actually Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm a big horror movie buff, by the way. And he was based on Ed Gein, the serial killer with the incredibly low IQ, but he managed to kill quite a lot of people. We have Freddy Krueger. He's appeared in a number of movies. And one of the main sort of things that I'm trying to get across to you here is that these are utterly iconic characters, and they have survived the test of time over and over again, remake after remake, tons and tons of movies. And then of course we have Michael Myers as well. We have Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Any kind of non-horror movie buff always gets these two mixed up, and it really annoys me. But I never do. We have Chucky, Charles Lee Ray, the killer doll. You would probably know this one. This is quite a difficult one, and I always sort of ask if we're actually having a face-to-face lecture. Who's that character? No one has a bloody clue. It's a sort of older movie, and it's the Djinn from Wishmaster, who's an evil genie. And he's absolutely brilliant. As you wish, I will alter. There's this brilliant scene where someone comes in and goes, "Oh no, what are you doing?" "I'm assuming this is something you do not wish to see." And he goes, "Yeah," and he makes him blind. And you go, "Oh, this is just brilliant stuff." Anyway, never mind. It's my horror movie fixation. And then, of course, we've got Pennywise, the clown. That's the sort of Tim Curry version. And loved him as well. You want it, don't you, Georgie? And then, of course, we have Pinhead from Hellraiser. And we have the new Pennywise from the new incarnation of It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. Because they pop, 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 pop. Hiya, Georgie. What a nice boat. Do you want it back? Anyway, I had a point here. You look like a nice boy. I bet you've got a lot of friends. Anyway, never mind. He sounds very, very Scooby-Doo when he says that, I feel. Hiya, Georgie. Never mind. So, the point is this. That with all these coming up with an original idea is a very, very difficult thing. But you have all of these original, iconic, brilliant characters that someone has come up with at some stage, and it's made them a ton of money. Now, if you actually look at, we pick one of these characters at random, say Michael Myers. I'm quite the horror movie buff, so I know all the movies that these people have actually been in, or these characters have been in. So we have Halloween. We have Halloween 2, which is like a continuation of the same night. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, he was not in. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection, those dreadful, dreadful horror Rob Zombie sort of remakes, which I didn't like because you couldn't actually see the carnage. There was too much of the camera sort of shaking about. And now we have the new Halloween movie that was released in 2018. I believe that's all of them. But the point is, it's a very, very original horror movie idea, and that shock element when they first made the original Halloween movie was to turn the camera around and you saw that the person doing the stabbing was a 6-year-old boy, and you went, amazing, fabulous. So, they survived the test of time. There's a Pinhead again in his sort of current form after being in a ton of movies, and I quite like that new Hellraiser, to be honest, because what he sort of does is he kills God's sort of right-hand angel, and God doesn't like this and punishes him and sends him back to Earth as a beggar, and he's going to sit there going, suffering, the pain. We love it. Anyway, Halloween was coming out on October 19th, 2 years ago. It's now on Netflix. I suggest you watch it. It's really quite good. So is it a movie? Once again, we're saying no. But if you have a bunch of iconic characters within a movie, what sort of happens is we have the Joker here. This is the Dark Knight, obviously, with the Joker. We have Batman. We have this guy that no one cares about. And really, if you watch a movie and analyze it, these characters actually just meet each other twice or 3 times in the movie in total, because they're powerful enough, they're strong enough, they're great enough characters to actually spur the movie on their own, except him. Then when you look at this, The Dark Knight Rises, once again, they only sort of meet twice. It's a shame about him, he was the absolute best. Until, of course, you see, oh no, I should have put that in the recurring characters, Joaquin Phoenix as Joker, which was excellent as well. Different sort of spin on it, different spin on the story, and really sort of looking at the mental health issues associated with it. So, some people actually do use their imagination to rewrite the story or the movie and try to fabricate that particular movie that they want. Now, if you consider this is Revenge of the Sith. Master Yoda, you survived. Surprise! Your arrogance blinds you, Master Yoda. Now you'll experience the full power of the dark side. Bzz. Love it. Anyway, someone's obviously decided that wasn't sufficient and came up with this character. And this is just a picture that I stole from the internet that someone has fabricated and called it Darth Yoda. Because they wanted to see a dark side of it. So obviously, people do sort of rewrite their own sort of things here. Again, iconic characters, I'm probably belaboring the point. You've got Magneto, I prefer Magneto. And then you've got Loki. Now they've gone through a number of sort of changes, and that's kind of what they look like now in the current incarnations. I suppose Loki has had a bit of a revamp, but they weren't going to really have, because Tom Hiddleston made such a good job of it, they weren't really going to have him in any more than one movie, but they decided that he would stand the test of time, and he's become a brilliant Loki character, and they all have fantastic things to say. And I particularly like what he says when he's in Stuttgart, and just when you're talking about actually reworking a movie for yourself, he says, Neil! Is not this simpler? Is this not your natural state? It's the unspoken truth of humanity that you crave subjugation. The bright lure of freedom diminishes your life's joy in a mad scramble for power, for identity. You were made to be ruled. In the end, you will always kneel. And then this wee German gets up and says, not to men like you. There are no men like me. There are always men like you. Look to your older people, let him be an example. And in my particular fantasy, Captain America doesn't get in the way, and that's it. And the German dude is disintegrated. And of course, Magneto has fantastic lines as well. He's a big sort of speech here where he says something along the line, you built these weapons to destroy us. Why? Because you're afraid of our gifts. Because
We are different. Humanity has always feared that which is different. But I'm here to tell you, to tell the world, you're right to fear us. We are the future. We are the ones who will inherit this earth. And anyone who stands in our way will suffer the same fate as these men you see before you. I could continue, but I'm probably taking up too much of the lecture with quotes. And you've got Apocalypse, Lex Luthor, you can fire your weapons from the Tower of Babylon, but you'll never strike God. Anyway, never mind. Many films have been made into games. So you've got Transformers there, you've got Kung Fu Panda, you got Lord of the Rings, Wolverine, or the X-Men anyway. And one of the sort of main things about the story associated with this game is if you actually played X-Men 3, you found out, because it was the official game, that Nightcrawler had decided not to appear in X-Men 3 because it's against my peaceful nature, Logan, apparently. E.T., stuff like that, Harry Potter, bloody terrible game, The Deathly Hallows. And to a lesser extent, many games have been made into movies. So, we have a few examples here. We've got Resident Evil. That's a sort of long-running film franchise now, and it's excellent. Really quite enjoyed it, to be honest. We've got Mortal Kombat. That was a brilliant movie as well. It came out in 1995, would you believe? And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was even made into a series. And then, of course, you get Hitman. You get Pokemon. Oh, I mean, that's gone off the map. And then you even had a sort of Street Fighter 2 movie, which was bloody terrible. But, you know, it was made from a game into a movie, and sometimes the formula works, sometimes it doesn't. And Kylie Minogue, when she's actually talking about this, says, "You live and learn." So, what is a game? Is it a toy? Not really. You play with a toy. Children use children use toys and play for the purposes of conflict resolution. So you do play with a toy and you play with a game, but you don't have any predefined constraints or rules when playing with a toy. Although you can tell from past experience that you attempt to make these rules up and enforce them during the course of playing with the toy. So, I mean, you were always in the playground, oh, make it this, make it that, oh, we'll change the rules and we'll do this sort of game. Now, I have seen my nieces actually play with their Barbies for conflict resolution, and it's a case of, how dare you, bitch, steal my sister. Steal my boyfriend, you're my sister, that was it. How dare you, bitch, you stole my boyfriend, you're my sister. And then they hack each other to death with their Barbies. And that was quite funny to see. Is it a puzzle? Quite clearly not. It does have puzzle elements. Puzzles differ from games due to the interactive sort of element. A puzzle doesn't respond consciously to interactions. And with a puzzle, you have to find the designer's solution and not necessarily your solution, where in a game you find your own solution. And games can, of course, have puzzle elements in them. And I do have a Rubik's Cube. If we were, in fact, meeting face to face, I would solve a Rubik's Cube for you in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and I learned to put your hands up for Detroit. And I remember having one student once who was just unbelievably intelligent, who managed to solve a 7x7x7 Rubik's Cube. And you're going, I can't even think of that. That just makes me go cross-eyed. But anyway, done that sort of thing as well. What is a game? A computer game is a software program in which one or more players make decisions through the control of game objects and resources in pursuit of a goal. So we've discussed this definition before. A game is a closed formal system that subjectively represents a subset of reality. So that was Chris Crawford in the Art of Computer Games Design. And then I would ask you guys, what you actually think contributes to a game, to making a good game. So what do you think constitutes a good game? You have challenge, competition, curiosity, fantasy, recognition, control, and cooperation. Now, these are actually all from Malone and Lepper's 1987 framework of intrinsic motivation. Not that you know that yet. But anyway, some of them are interpersonal factors and some of them are individual factors. So these are the interpersonal factors here, obviously recognition, control, I beg your pardon, I think it's recognition, cooperation and competition. Or maybe these are the interpersonal factors, recognition, control and cooperation. I think it's those. Competition, recognition and cooperation.
Those would be interpersonal factors. And then individual factors would be challenge, curiosity, fantasy, and control. There is, of course, other things as well. Fun, but what actually constitutes fun? As I've kind of hinted, fun to me might be stabbing a baby in Halloween, the movie. Not really. But anyway, fun is a very subjective term. What is fun to one person would not necessarily be fun to another. Immersion. Immersion is a great big huge field in psychology as well. You have strategic immersion, narrative immersion, tactical immersion, and it's huge to see what all kind of goes into that. If you look up immersion on Wikipedia, you'll see that it's incredibly complicated. Rules and goals, there have to be rules and goals in games. Sensory stimuli. I remember specifically when I was playing the Nintendo 64 in 1996, and I was playing Star Fox 64, and this is the first time I actually got sensory stimuli or sensory physical stimuli from a game. So there was a rumble pack that you actually inserted into the controller. I crashed into the side of a mountain and it rumbled and went, oh my god! And I dropped the thing. And that was my first physical sensory stimuli from a game that wasn't auditory or visual. So that was quite interesting. But you guys have no idea you're born nowadays, because I mean, we used to have to go down to the shops, pick up new batteries for the rumble pack every time it ran out, come up and get the batteries in there. But now everything is just charged off of the controllers. Everything is absolutely fantastic. It's a good time to be alive apart from COVID-19. So what are your favourite games? Here are some of my favourite games. This is Mortal Kombat 2 in the Super Nintendo. And I actually have a Super Nintendo Mini here. Isn't it beautiful? I think I've got the real thing somewhere. And sometimes I sit them beside each other and fantasize that this father and son. Mario Kart, always one of the faves as well. This was Link's Awakening on the original Game Boy. I now have that on the Switch. Yep. So I've got a Nintendo Switch here and a Nintendo Switch Lite, and I was playing Link's Awakening for the purposes of nostalgia. So that's one of my sort of favourite games. I completed it in 1993, and I completed it last year as well. Street Fighter 2, one of my favourite games, absolutely brilliant. And this is before, these games are before games got far too bloody complicated, because now they are. If you're finishing someone off in a fatality, you've got to go and do a week of legal reading, not legal reading, a week of reading, but it feels like legal reading, in order to get all the moves and everything appropriately put into the control pad before you can finish someone off, so it becomes too bloody complicated. This was X-Men Dimensions, which was one of the sort of games in the Nintendo GameCube where Magneto was a viable fighting character. It was absolutely fantastic. And it was let none stand before my might. And all he did was wave at people, and that was it. He destroyed them, as is rightly the case with someone so disgustingly powerful. GoldenEye 64, that was a great game. Super Mario 64 as well. I've got all these games. What the hell is my, it's over there in my case, but I've got Super Mario 3D as well. So that's the sort of 3 games. So I've got Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo Switch over there, and then Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Sunshine. So fabulous games. One of my favourite games for the Wii, and I've actually given it away to a wee boy that liked it, but he absolutely loves it. And it was Star Wars The Force Unleashed, and that's where touch technology started to sort of come into it with the first iPhone and the Wii, and you were able to, and it got it right. It really did manage to get it right, the Wii, in terms of levitating people and all that kind of stuff. And then I quite like Superman games as well. This was on the Xbox 360, which you can see here, which is now completely and utterly ornamental. It sort of fits in with my decor of having every console imaginable. So what makes a good game? Also quite like Sonic. So there's the Mega Drive Mini as well. I've told you about this before, where I went into Lidl's or Aldi's or one of those stupid stores, and there was these two dads having a little argument, kind of going, oh, I don't know if I can afford it, mate, oh, I don't know, well, I don't know if I can afford it either. And I just went along and picked up the last one and said, well, I can afford it. See you guys. Oh, what a day that was. Anyway, What makes a good game? Reaching goals. In Super Mario 64, once you got 120 stars, then you got a fantastic new looking jump. So I remember being in higher English and my best friend Ross coming in every single morning and telling me, get 3 more stars from last night. You go, oh, that's brilliant, fantastic. So that was a good sort of way of doing it, because the stars also acted as a mechanism to gain access to other regions and other worlds through paintings. It's amazing. And it was actually done very, very good. So you've got the sort of obligatory snow, desert, water, fire levels. So in terms of goals, you have Save the Princess. It's always saving the princess when it's Mario or something like that, or he's trying to clear his name or whatever. It's always relatively simple. Yoshi's Island, you're trying to, Yoshi is in fact attempting to return baby Mario to the appropriate place. Coming first in the race, Super Mario Kart, that's the goal for many, many games. Defeating as many enemies as you can, gathering 100 coins or stars. There was a very, very good game in the Nintendo 64 called Blast Cone, that was clear the path for a nuclear bomb. Save as many lemmings as you can, shoot as many zombies as you can. So there has to be some form of goal within those games in order for you to, know exactly what you're doing. Okay. Decisions is also a good thing. Here we have Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. When I played this game originally, it was actually on the original Xbox, and it was before I went into my honours year of software engineering, would you believe? And I thought, I'm going to play this last game before my life is taken away. And the best part was, you really got to make choices during the game to decide whether you were going to the dark side of the Force or the light side of the Force. And believe you me, I always went to the dark side of the Force. I was always far more evil than any of my friends, which was great. I chose the dark side, and my friend would always go for the light side, and that would always result in replayability. And he would always say to me, why didn't you play as a good character? Because that's not me and I'm not doing it. And I would always say, why did you play as a bad character? He said, no. So obviously there's something to do with personality types, whether that's morality or whatever, that sort of dictates what you actually do in a game. Okay. Rules and constraints, how the player determines how to proceed, how the winner of the game is determined. That's very sort of important. I was once playing, I can't remember exactly what game it was, I think it was GoldenEye actually, and it was Capture the Flag. And I was playing with an idiot, let's face it, and got to the end of it. And even though I died, the majority of the time, he said, how did you win that? I said, well, I won because the idea was to capture the flag. The rule was to keep the flag in your possession as long as possible. And I did that, despite the fact that you blew my brains out about 45 times. I had the maximum possession of the flag. Yeah, great. Even the simplest games have rules. So we've got rock, paper, scissors. And that is a fantastic example of how games can in fact be extended. So I mean, rock, paper, scissors, you've seen it in the Big Bang Theory. It's rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, I think, and it's scissors cut paper. Paper covers rock, rock crushes lizard, lizard poisons Spock, Spock smashes scissors, scissors decapitate lizard, lizard eats paper, paper disproves Spock, Spock vaporizes rock, and as it always has, rock crushes scissors. I can't believe I remember that. Okay, good stuff. So when we think of chess, all pieces can in fact only move in a particular way. Then balance between players is also a good thing as well. So if one player is more skilled than another, then the other player entirely loses interest. And that's the way it sort of goes. And it begins to lose its appeal. There's also got to be a balance between the players and the game. So if you look at Street Fighter and you look at Killer Instinct, Bison was hard to beat, but he was fair, yes? And then when you consider this guy, he had a 70 hit combo, and you're going, how is that even remotely fair? So every time you were about to beat him, he'd destroy you, and you're going, not fair. Here's an example of me beating my friend at Street Fighter 2 on the SNES, and this is what sort of happens when you get a player that's so much more advanced than the other person, and it's really because of age in this case, because I was great at Street Fighter 2, always have been, and he wasn't, and he wasn't quite of the right sort of age group, and he said, I'll play a video game with you, and I said, alright, okay, let's do this. A video game of my choice, right? We'll pick this, and there we have it. I won 28 times, he won 3, and that was me being generous. Destroyed him. Okay, rewards. Life when you're just about to run out. Power-ups to give you a boost, too many of them make the game far too easy. And not enough of them make you feel cheated. Now, I've put in I2GD here. Now, Jurassic Park on the Game Boy, oh my god. When you actually completed that game, it actually said on a little sign, congratulations, you've escaped Jurassic Park. And you're going, excellent, 8 hours of gameplay and that's what you give me. You know, not even a nice story. So, flow, there has to be an optimum level of challenge. And this is characterized by being highly focused, not realizing that time is in fact passing at all. And yes, yeah, no time passing at all. Everything is characterized by being highly focused, and it's kind of relative, really. You kind of look up, we've all done it, where you look up at the clock and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe that 4 hours have actually passed since I've been playing this game. Objects and resources, we've got Zelda games, you've got things like the boomerang, the crossbow, slingshot, rupees. These make good games as well in order to fulfill a particular purpose. You've got coins, mushrooms, fire flowers, ice flowers in Mario, and then you've got all the sort of things in Mario Kart as well. So story can be incredibly intricate, but it can also be very, very simple. So things like, I love story in games, but Mario Save the Princess, Donkey Kong, Find All the Bananas. There was a game that was incredibly complex. I think it was in the Xbox, the first original Xbox, so the Xbox 360, and it came in 3 DVDs or 3 CDs or whatever, because the story was so incredibly complex. So that was L.A. Noire, look it up. Branching stories, linear, parallel plot, open structure, and no story arc. These can all be a factor. So let's have a look. I mean, if you look at a simple game like Street Fighter 2, these two were in competition with each other. She's annoyed at him because he killed her dad. He wants to be Yokozuna. He just seems to be lost in the jungle and decides to become a fighter. He's annoyed at something and an incidental character. He's annoyed at him because his partner's gone missing. He is once again incidental. He's incredibly vain. He's pissed off at him because he beat him in a fight. So it's very, very, and he just wants to take over the world and is brilliant. So very, very, very short, sort of simple stories that spur your interest, and you sort of, gravitate towards the characters that you find appealing. Now, I've got a picture of Smog. Who are you that would stand against me? You will burn. Yes, so I've got Smaug in here, and the reason I've sort of put him in there is because you can notice that stories, even though the Hobbit, the book is a pamphlet, it can become far, far, far more complex, where you've got 3 movies that are about 4 hours long, so about 12 hours of footage. Another example of story could be from books. Now, the reason I'm sort of showing you this is we had a bunch of third years back in the days of yore, and they had no imagination whatsoever. The soul of an amoeba and the imagination of a pot noodle. And every single time they tried to come up with some form of game, it'd be a case of, oh yeah, it's going to be a first-person shooter and there's going to be zombies. Oh god, another one. And then if they came up with a sort of platformer, it's this guy's going along and he's going through pipes and he's picking up mushrooms. Oh god, it's Mario. And it was always quite formulaic what they sort of came up with. So my point to you is look at movies, take inspiration from things that you see in your everyday life, movies, even books, for goodness sake. So here's an example of stories from books. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. We've got, you can see how the characters have actually evolved during the films. So in the original sort of films, it was always a case of, dear Lord Holmes, how did you know that? Oh, elementary, my dear Watson. He was always kind of having to explain everything to Watson, even though Watson was a doctor and knew a lot, of things. He was still a bit of an idiot. But nowadays, he's more or less Holmes' equal, shall we say. And then we have Professor Moriarty, absolutely brilliant. You see him sort of meeting him there. And then you can see how things like Dracula, again, iconic characters have changed and been represented in different guises or different medium. So there we have Christopher Lee as Dracula, then we have Gary Oldman, and how things are sort of moving along. We then have this fantastic film called The Monster Squad, which I quite liked, and then we have the sort of Van Helsing and the werewolf, you know, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is in there as well. So we're emphasising that all of these characters come from books, and they are reused even now, or every now and again, in more modern versions to keep up with the times, as they are completely and utterly iconic. So there we have it. That's the sort of point I'm trying to make. Again, Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, very short book, but still very, very good. Sir Oscar Wilde's the Picture of Dorian Gray. So take inspiration from these things, and if you're wanting to implement a game or think of a game about these things, then great, you know, use it. Jack the Ripper, I'd love to see a Jack the Ripper game. I'd love to see a sort of Dorian Gray game and a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde game. Sherlock Holmes, Dracula, go crazy. Whatever you want to take inspiration from. That's the entire idea of this lecture. So there we have Mr. Hyde. I wasn't really too happy that they made him Scottish in the Van Helsing. It's Mr. Hyde now. Oh, I don't like it. And then we have the portrait of Dorian Gray or whatever. Jack the Ripper, always an iconic mystery. We have Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper, but basically no one knows who Jack the Ripper ever really was. So we have suspects, we have Aaron Kosminski, we have Montague John Druitt, we have Sir William Gull, Dr. Francis Tumblepay, Edward Sickert, or Eddard Sickert or whatever, according to Patricia Cornwell, and no one has a bloody clue who he was, is the point. So, lots to be done there, in terms of, or lots of inspiration to be taken. Also, the game world makes a phenomenal contribution to a good game. So we have things like Super Mario, Land, World, Galaxy, yes. In the Game Boy, we had Land. In the Nintendo 64, we had World, because the technology is getting better. They can represent entire worlds. Then we have Galaxy as well. What's next? Universe. Okay. Then we have Zelda, Hyrule, Koholint Island. There is the entirety of Koholint Island. So it would be nice to actually have, and we've got that in the sort of template, your levels, your game world, and all of that sort of outlined in your games design document. We have Azeroth and the World of Warcraft. So main characters, again, we have Mario, Link, the Master Chief, the sort of protagonist and antagonist. We have the Sonic the Hedgehog, Lara Croft, who's shall we say, figure altered back in the 90s with the advancement of computer technology, and without being sexist about it. This was the Pentium 1, Pentium 2, and by the Pentium 3, Lara could no longer actually stand. Darth Vader, main characters, and there's generally a protagonist and an antagonist. So Bowser, Ganondorf, you get customizable characters as well. The jury is out there whether people feel greater emotional connection to a character that you are given and you adopt the role or assume the role of an incredibly powerful character, or do you have a better emotional connection to a character that you create? But these characters that you create are deeply embedded in fantasy as well. So, I mean, you're not going to, in Fable, for example, I'm running about in my underwear with tattoos, which is something I would never do in real life. So the jury is out whether customizable characters have a greater emotional connection, or characters that you're just simply sort of assuming have a greater emotional connection. Sound and music, sound effects, jumping, fireball, shooting, getting destroyed, blowing up. That obviously contributes to a good game. We have things like music, so these are really the sound effects. We have the music. Each character can be associated with their own theme. So Darth Vader, you know, every time that theme's playing, that oh Christ, here he's coming. We have the Michael Myers thing, probably one of the most famous late motifs, which is probably something that you wouldn't even be familiar with, is the Jaws theme. So all it was two notes, E and F, played on the piano, which I will just do. And then that would be played faster and faster as the shark sort of approached. So you have different sort of leitmotifs. My ringtone is in fact the Imperial March from Star Wars. So, a good starting point, all these things contribute to a good game, and these are things that you have to sort of identify in your game's design document. So a good starting point is to be able to write a description of your game, and here's a description of lemmings, okay? So, a group of small suicidal rodents drop into an environment with various dangers that will potentially kill them. You must use the objects at your disposal to protect them from the various devices of death in bottomless pits. You've got to save a predefined amount of entities to progress in the next level. And of course, when you're actually talking about lemmings, you have a sort of you have that sort of theme going on in the background, or some of them anyway. Contrary to what people will in fact tell you, lemmings are not suicidal. They don't just simply one day go, bugger it, that's it, I'm going to swim into the ocean. What sort of happens is it's part of their migratory pattern, and sometimes they bite off a little more than they can possibly chew. So they think to themselves, I'm going to go that way. And unfortunately, it's the ocean. And that's how they actually commit suicide. So it's nothing to do with that. They're not depressed, they're merely slightly confused, and that's it. So there you have it. That's a sort of definition or description of a game. So it would be nice if you could actually put a description of a game up as well. And then of course you've got sound effects and music that's associated with all of it. I didn't mean to go and play the piano there, it was just a thing. Happened, spontaneous. Okay, the implementations can be permutations of the games in the tutorials. So you can have a permutation of the scrolling shooter, permutation of the maze game, permutation of the platform game. Or you can just avoid the implementation entirely and go for option one. Although some of you are doing very, very well with the game implementation, so I wouldn't waste that. And plus it would be a more interesting module for you if you actually implement something. But that's entirely up to you. In these unprecedented times, I'm not going to force you into one choice or the other. But it would be nice if the games development people who are going to be developing games for the rest of their lives would do some games development. So, you've got the scrolling shooter, the maze game and the platform game, even the catch the clown game. You can sort of think about that. What's happening? So look at these games for inspiration. So you've got things like R-Type. That's a sort of two-dimensional game. So it looks very, very much like the scrolling shooter. So if you're having difficulty coming up with a fresh implementation of your own, then you can just more or less use that particular framework of a game and swap all the assets and make it into a space shooter game. People have done that in the past, where you've had a sort of Star Warsy game instead of the scrolling shooter 1945 game. So you can do stuff like that. You can make it into a sort of spacey game. You can have even, instead of that, you can have a sort of soldier walking up and down, and that's absolutely fine, and that's Dogs of War in the Atari. Or you can have a sort of racing game. So that's what I'm trying to sort of put to you. And in the maze game, you can have a sort of slight Zelda game with some story in it or something like that. The maze game is probably the easiest to implement, but all you need to do is draw various things. So that's what you would probably do for the sort of scrolling shooter game, perhaps. You might have a Halloween game or a shark game. We've had things like that in the past where people have been fighting against pirate ships, or been pirate ships, or in fact being the Kraken themselves, or like Hungry Shark Evolution in a sort of more primitive sort of implementation. So these are the maze games. This is a game called Oh Mummy, where you're actually exploring these Egyptian tombs, and mummies are kind of going about. It's a bit like Pac-Man as well, but you're actually trying to get some keys, some treasure, that sort of thing. Crystal Mines 2, once again, it's exactly the sort of maze game, just a different sort of coating skin on it, yes. You've got Bubble Bobble and things like that. So you could have Headhunter games, Escape the Cannibals, Escape the Vampires, that sort of thing, yeah. And here's a sort of platform game. Maybe you'd like to look at Metroid, a 2D Metroids game. We've got the Flash here, we've got Super Mario Land, We've got Batman Returns in the Super Nintendo. So these are just sort of two-dimensional games that you can do as a sort of platform game. And you can do other things as well, such as True Blood if you're into that sort of thing, The Avengers perhaps, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, into that, R-Type from the side as well. Oh god, I mentioned Twilight, I'm so sorry. I forgot to take that out. I've been meaning to take that out of the slides for quite some time. Drat. Anyway, so that's to give you sort of inspiration. I hope it gave you inspiration. So not to worry if you're having sort of difficulty with that. So have a look over the slides, have a listen to what I've said, if I've in fact made sense, and think about what sort of game you're actually wanting to design and implement. And I'll put up this lecture, me talking through the slides, and I'll actually complete the assessment so you can read that as well. And apart from that, take it easy, my little pals.